Hi, my name is Simone Padur, and this is Cara Wright, and we're gonna talk baby talk to you today. So, Cara, I've known you for years, and it's just lately that I discovered that you have this whole other past that I was not aware of. Um, and you've worked a lot with babies. So, tell
Wow.
me how that started.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things that has been a thread in my life, really my whole life. It's been there and it's something that I have different things that I do because I'm one of those people who's a bit of a renaissance person where I do many different things and I've already had many incarnations in my life. But one of the themes that always tends to find me is pregnancy, birth, babies, all things of that nature. And it really started out like in college. I went to school and got a degree. I really did not have an idea what I wanted to do when I went to college. So I just kind of fell into a degree and ended up being like a bachelor's of science degree, and it was like a health education degree. And my final project that I did, which I didn't realize I didn't remember I did it till years later. My final project was called Healthy Babies, Healthy Mothers, which was really interesting
Wow.
because then I forgot that I did that. And I kind of went onto a different path and I worked at a retail store for a while. I did makeup, totally different. And then I decided I wanted to do something different. So I became a yoga instructor, but I didn't just become a regular yoga instructor. I actually specialized in prenatal and postnatal yoga. So again, here pops up this baby theme out of nowhere. And I worked for, I think for like 20 years, I did pregnancy and birth yoga. I also did birth preparation classes. I also then kind of naturally moved into being a doula, which I was a doula before that was even something that people knew what it was. And I spent about 15 years working with all things mom and babies with doulas, assisting births. For those of you that don't know what a doula is, we basically assist the mom and the family in the process of birth. So, yeah, and it was not until I actually got back into the pregnancy and birth and all the yoga stuff that I realized years prior, I had totally done this big, huge kind of thesis final project on healthy mothers, healthy babies. So, and then I again had another incarnation and I found access consciousness and I started becoming a facilitator of access consciousness and using all the amazing tools that this body of work has. And now again, the baby thing has shown up. So it's quite funny. It's just one of those things. Like, obviously, there is something about this whole body work that I'm aware of. So I'm really excited. And yeah, I wonder what else is possible.
So, just out of curiosity, with the access consciousness tools, um, what have you noticed is different than when you were doing using some of the other tools? You know, when you were doing yoga with mothers, etc. What's different about it?
Well, I mean, the main difference is that access, the body of work, bars and the access body of work has the ability to actually dissipate electrical charge of judgment, of right and wrong, of good and bad, of do this or don't do this. And one of the most highly polarized areas, I think, on the planet is, you know, becoming a mom, birth, pregnancy. There's all these like you should do this, you shouldn't do that. And also birth is a very intense experience and a lot of stuff comes up at birth, not just for the mom but also for the baby and for the whole family. And access tools, I have not found anything better than the bars and some of the basic tools of access to help facilitate somebody having an easier time and having more choice and more space and just a lot more ease with whatever shows up because it's also very unpredictable. So
It is. It is.
yeah.
So, yes, I mean, I'm addicted to Call the Midwife. So, um,
It's an awesome
hey,
show.
I know that this can be a very unpredictable area. So, and I know that it's also very polarized. You know, do you breastfeed? Do you not breastfeed? You know, like there's so much going on,
On
and
every turn there is. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so much judgment of what is right and what is wrong. It is insane that people actually still choose it.
It kind of is, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I do think people will continue to choose to have children, and yeah, I mean, the more freedom you have to actually, first of all, know what you know what your baby knows, and actually have the space to choose it no matter what, even if it's you decided you should do something different than what you're actually choosing. Because sometimes the most judgmental person and the worst person you can have in a space is the woman herself who's decided all of these things, and then something else
Yeah.
shows up and they're kind of paralyzed to choose something different when a different choice would create more. So for me,
So,
access tools made a big difference in that regard.
so can you talk a little bit about maybe an example that you recall of somebody who maybe was in that position of like, you know, just torn in two? Because I know a lot of parents that, you know, whether they've got a little baby, it's still in their room, whatever, there is this thing going on.
What do we choose?
So yeah, what have you noticed, like the change that you've observed in parents or
Well, I
future
mean,
parents?
one of the big ones that shows up a lot is where women will desire to have kind of a low intervention birth. So one of the things that shows up a lot in birth in this culture, and it's really globally, it's not necessarily some countries are better than others, but is that we tend to intervene in the process quite a bit. There's a lot of
Yeah,
points of view about what it should look like, how it should go, how every birth, how a normal birth looks, what that constitutes. And because there's all of that out there, some women will have the target to have a very low intervention birth, and it just won't, that's not what occurs. Whether it's that their body doesn't actually follow the rules that it's supposed to, or the baby doesn't actually follow the rules that it's supposed to, or there's so many different variables and there's not a lot of room for variables. So I would say one of the biggest places is that a woman doesn't desire to have a particular intervention and yet it's introduced, and now what do you do?
right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
those
So
are
have you found that even if that actually occurs, then there's a lot more flow, a lot more relaxation, a lot more, okay, well, this is how it's happening, folks.
well
Than if
being able
than if
yeah well, being able to actually be present with what's going to work for you in that
yeah,
moment, because anytime those things show up at a birth, especially, sometimes it can be during pregnancy, but at a birth especially, it's a heightened state, right? Everybody is like, at a level 10. And so
yeah,
to be able to have clarity and to be present with what you desire, even if it's different than what you thought you were going to do, is such a huge gift. And there are so many different tools and the Access toolbox that can contribute to that process. Whether it's quickly running bars or being able to ask a question or being able to be more present with you than everyone in the room, which can be kind of difficult for women who are, especially in labor, because when you're in labor, you're energetically open. You are just like open. You have a baby physically coming through your body, and you have this being who is embodying in that moment. So a woman who is having a baby, whether she's aware of it or not, energetically, she is wide open. So to not be a million times aware of what everybody else thinks she should choose, is really difficult. And so again, access tools in the birth space are amazing.
Yeah. So with that heightened awareness, my sense is when you talk about it, just for the regular Joe that's watching this that's never come across access tools, my sense is it's part of our sort of animalistic kind of
Absolutely.
way of being. I mean, we have to be hyper aware because we're very vulnerable. We're very, we need to protect our baby, all of that jazz.
Absolutely. I mean, some of my favorite people, Michel Odent was he's one of the first people who created the birth center. But one of his main things is like, look, the biggest intervention that we do with women is we like hyper observe them. Like no freaking animal anywhere else on the planet wants to be watched at birth, and yet that's the first thing that we do. We're like, oh my God, she's in labor, let everybody stare at her, so
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it is that there are instinctual things, and there are even like, what some would probably call spiritual things that occur. It doesn't matter who you are, it's going to happen because this is like part of the process when you are having
Yeah.
a baby.
So talk to me a bit about, women that maybe get pregnant and don't want the baby, or women that maybe don't get pregnant and have no desire to have the baby. And I'll move on from there, but we can start with those two.
Well, and that's one of the things that's really interesting is that a lot of women are aware. They're aware of, the possibilities of having children. They're actually even aware of like beings there that are like, hey, I'm here to be your kid. We oftentimes disregard that. Oh, that's not happening. That's crazy talk. Or, you have dreams about like a person saying to you, like, I'm here to be your kid. And you wake up going, well, that was crazy. And it's like, what if it's actually not crazy? And what if that's actually going on? What if you can actually be aware of the beings that are coming, that are going to be your children, or that would like to be your children? And, whether or not that is something that you're going to be choosing, what if you could actually have that conversation as opposed to being like, okay, I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen and you're over there and talk to me. Exactly. So, and like with women who have been trying to conceive, or women who, and part of that process sometimes for women who are conceiving is they will conceive, they'll physically get pregnant, and then their body will lose the pregnancy. We call that a miscarriage. And oftentimes women, like, they're aware, like, my body's different, and the pregnancy, the physical part of the pregnancy is not there, but I'm so aware of this being. And again, what if you're not crazy? What if that's actually what's going on? And what if you could actually still have the communication and the creation with that being of what's next, even if you're not pregnant anymore, or you don't have any intention to be pregnant? So,
well, one of the really beautiful stories that I watched lately, it's part of a novel, was this older woman. She has this dream of this little girl. She's far past, childbearing years, but she keeps having this dream. And it's a friend of hers that then has the child. And of course she recognizes it immediately.
yeah.
And then this is Victorian England. This isn't, any sort of hippy dippy kind of thing. It's just like, we are aware of these things.
We are aware of these things. And for, I think for time in memoriam, there has been different ways to describe it. There has been different ways in which different, cultures and different religions have talked about it. We are all very aware of, before life in a body and after life in a body. We're all very aware of people and energies of people. And, it's definitely been true for me. I haven't always been cognizant of that's what it was. I didn't spend my whole life going, I'm aware of people, beings that are coming into baby bodies. That was not what I was thinking, and when I look back at all these, all these times working with women and being in birth, um, being with people at birth, there were so many times that I was absolutely having a conversation, for lack of a better way of saying it, with the being that was coming into this body that was going to be embodied here. And it makes a big difference when you're actually willing to go, oh, I actually am communicating. There is some communication going on here. They are communicating. We have these funny ideas of what babies are, and they are those things.
Yeah,
And what else are they that's even greater than that?
absolutely.